welcome to week 10. Okay, so as you guys are working on the blogs and continuing to work in your teams, we're going to start looking toward the next project, which is going to be the last individual project, and that is the analysis synthesis essay. So this week we're going to talk over how to do synthesis, and we're going to look even further ahead and start talking about the final exam. Now, just as a heads up here, the final exam materials have been posted to the tab on eCampus. They're under the final exam tab. We will talk about what's there right now. It's currently only one file. We'll talk about what's there later on in this presentation. So first off, let's talk about synthesis. So what is synthesis? Well, it's somewhat related to the concept of analysis. Okay, you may recall when we were doing our scholarship essays, the analysis essay, we were talking about breaking things down into something a bit more understandable. Okay, synthesis also involves some analysis. It's going to involve some breaking down, but it also involves taking elements from research sources and integrating them together to form a new argument. Okay, so when you are synthesizing an argument, what you're doing is collecting stuff from different sources here, there, everywhere, and then you're putting it together and creating your own argument based on what you've found. Now, when you synthesize into a discussion, you're building upon the arguments that have been previously made by integrating elements of those arguments together into a new idea. Again, finding the elements that you need to create your argument from the separate parts that you are drawing from your research, finding new ways to put them together and creating your own argument from there. So the next major essay you guys will be doing is an analysis synthesis essay. You will need to employ elements of the last essay assignment, the analysis, and add a synthesis of your research you performed for this assignment. Okay, this is going to require research. Let's talk a little bit about what synthesis is first, and then we're going to go into as we go further on, we're going to talk about what to do for research. So the act of synthesizing is what we're going to talk about here. Now, the best way to synthesize research is going to be to have a wealth of research to draw upon. So I would direct you to the textbook in chapter 7 in the segment on synthesizing. Okay, we have a passage here from a book titled The Young and the Digital. Now, what the author is doing here is integrating two research sources, pulling together information from them, and framing that information within an original argument of the author's creation. Okay, so this is the basics of the act of synthesis. You're going to be pulling from other sources to create your own argument. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so this is the synthesized argument. Here's the passage. In years past, social scientists expressed serious apprehension about the media content, especially violent and sexual imagery, that's exposed to young children and teenagers. And though violent and sexual themes in media continue to be a serious topic of debate, a growing amount of attention is shifting to the proliferation of screens in homes and in young people's lives. There is rising anxiety about the sheer amount of time children and teens spend with media and technology. According to a 2006 study conducted by the Kaiser Family Foundation, kids spend between 6 and 8.5 hours a day with media. Today, playtime for many young children usually involves time with a screen, and they observe their parents' connections to mobile phones, Blackberries, laptops, and other electronic gadgets. Many young children mimic those behaviors. We often hear, and for a good reason, that young people are leading the migration to digital. But in many homes across America, parents are unwittingly teaching their kids to be digital. In the midst of the marketing and selling of the digital lifestyle, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that children's daily screen time be limited to 1 to 2 hours. Okay? Now, this is written by an author named S. Craig Watkins. Okay? And according to Yelsky, he draws on several sources to make his main point about the increasing amount of time young people spend using digital media. He has two specific sources that he cites. One is the Kaiser Family Foundation, and the other is a recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Okay? Now, The thing is, though, the first part of this actually is presenting an overview of his own argument. Okay, an overview of the important development. In this case, it's just the shift from questionable media content to the amount of time children spend with media, being what parents are concerned about. Okay. Now, he probably found that from several other sources, but really the more important sources that he's citing in this passage are Kaiser Family Foundation and American Academy of Pediatrics. Okay, they're going to be the ones that be more credible. All right. So what he's doing here is exactly what you're going to be asked to do for this essay. He's pulling stuff together, synthesizing it, and creating his own argument. Okay, while citing the experts, he's also applying their words to or what they have to say into his own argument. Okay. So there's three main goals to writing a synthesis essay. Okay, three main goals. One, keep larger goals in mind. So you need to always be aware of the context into which you're going to be synthesizing information. Okay, whatever your context is, whatever your argument is going to be, you need to keep that in mind as you're doing the synthesis. Next, identify a main point. This will be your central argument to which you'll be synthesizing your research information. Aim all of your synthesis energy toward proving this main point. Okay, everything you're going to do, all the effort you're going to put into synthesizing has to be moving toward your main argument. Also, use only the source material you need. Okay, excessive information will be a distraction both to you and your audience, so keep your information gathering lean and streamlined. You can do a wide net on finding your research information, but don't use it all. Don't try to jam it all into one paper, because some of it is going to be more usable than others. So keep your larger goals in mind. When conducting research, it is easy to lose sight of the main goal of your work. Okay, so when you're doing your research, keep in mind, what is it that you're trying to say? What is the point you're trying to make? What is the topic you're working with? What's the research question that you're working with? Okay, are you finding stuff that answers that research question, or are you just finding random information that seems interesting? Okay, remind yourself as you go along of what your central idea is and maintain that idea as your focus. Now, the sample that's in the textbook keeps an eye toward an overall idea for exploring the social impact of digital media. Okay, while it still focuses on the particulars of the time young people spend on digital media. Okay, particularly focusing on social media. So focus on your central idea as you perform your synthesis in order to better narrow your ideas. Like I said, keep an eye toward your research question, whatever it is you are trying to answer as you're doing your research, so that you're only looking for the stuff that answers that question. Okay? You are managing information from several different sources to make a single connected point. Okay? Now, Yagelski has another example here about vegetarianism. This is a piece that pulls from three disparate sources to make a single point about vegetarianism affecting breastfed babies, while keeping an eye on the central idea about the existence of these long-standing debates about vegetarianism. All right, so let's take a look at this passage. Debates about the efficacy of vegetarianism follow us from cradle to wheelchair. In 1998, childcare expert Dr. Benjamin Spock, who became a vegetarian late in life, stoked a stir by recommending that children over the age of 2 be raised as vegans, rejecting even milk and eggs. The American Dietetic Association says it is possible to raise kids as vegans, but cautions that special care must be taken when nursing infants, who don't develop properly without the nutrients in mother's milk or fortified formula. Other researchers warn that infants breastfed by vegans have lower levels of vitamin B12 and DHA, and omega-3 fatty acid, important to vision and growth. Okay? So, there are three different sets of sources in this particular passage. Okay? One is material about Dr. Spock and his controversy about saying kids at age 2 or older should be raised as vegans. 2 is from the American Dietary Association. Okay, that's their recommendations for nursing infants. Okay, And 3 is nutritional studies of infants who are breastfed by vegans. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar with the varying levels, so to speak, of vegetarianism, you have base vegetarianism, which is you don't eat meat. Okay, but you may make exceptions for things like fish or eggs or animal products. Then you have vegans who absolutely will not eat any animal product at all. That includes milk, eggs, dairy, anything like that. Okay. Vegans do wind up sometimes having some deficiencies in nutrition that can only be provided through animal products. Okay, and that's especially what they're talking about here with the breastfeeding, because these particular vitamins, these particular nutrients that they're talking about are lacking in their breast milk, vitamin B12 and DHA. These are specific to animal products. Okay, B12 is a common vitamin in red meat. DHA is commonly found in fish. Okay, it's omega-3 fatty acids are typically found in fish liver oil. Okay, so this is a lot of different sources here being pulled together for a single argument, or to make a single point, and that point is in regards to whether we should allow mothers who are breastfeeding to continue a vegetarian or vegan diet, and whether kids themselves should be raised as vegetarian. Okay, so find your main point and focus your research around that main point. Now, attempts to synthesize too much information into an essay can easily overwhelm you as the writer, and will also overwhelm the audience as the reader. So what you need to do is look for only the most pertinent information to prove your point. Okay? Now, too much information is going to leave your essay unclear in terms of the direction that's moving, or with a questionable statement of argument. Okay? So we're going to do a little bit of practice here with synthesis. Okay? Here's what we're going to do. It's going to be posted 2 questions to the professor. I have an exercise it's labeled 7E in my textbook. Okay, I believe it might be 11E in the unabridged textbooks that you have on MindTap. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Disregard anything that says in teams. Okay, look at this exercise on my pages 239, 240. It's exercise 7E or 11E. Okay, what you have is 4 different sources. Okay. 4 different research sources on a single topic. In this case, it's the job market for college graduates. Okay. What I want you to do on Questions Professor is compose a single paragraph that synthesizes all 4 of these resources. Okay. Now, I want to be clear here. We have 4 sources. One source is an excerpt from a book titled Hard Times, College Majors, Unemployment, and Earnings. Next one is an excerpt from an article titled The Coming Burst of the College Bubble from Newsweek in 2012. Next one is from an article, news article, half of new grads are jobless or underemployed. It's an AP article. And then the 4th one is from an article titled How Bad is the Job Market for College Grads? Your Definitive Guide, and it's an article from The Atlantic. Okay? I will read all 4 of these paragraphs to you so that you have them right here. Okay? So, find the information you need from all 4 of these paragraphs. Okay? And then create a single paragraph that integrates information from all 4. But you need to make sure also that it reads like a reasonable paragraph, has a central point, and integrates enough information from all the sources to make your point, but not so much as to overwhelm the reader. There are going to be some things in these that are going to be more applicable to a main point than others. Okay? Remember, the main point is to make a new argument and derive your evidence for that argument from the materials you synthesize from. Okay? You're going to be pulling stuff from these sources. Okay? To create your paragraph. Now, again, the topic that we're dealing with here is the job market for college graduates. Okay? Keeping that in mind, here are the 4 paragraphs. First off, this is from Anthony Carnaval, hard times, college majors, unemployment, and earnings. A bachelor's degree is one of the best weapons a job seeker can wield in the fight for employment and earnings. And staying on campus to earn a graduate degree provides safe shelter from the immediate economic storm and will pay off with greater employability and earnings once the graduate enters the labor market. Unemployment for students with new bachelor's degrees is an unacceptable 8.9%, but it's a catastrophic 22.9% for job seekers with a recent high school diploma, and an almost unthinkable 31.5% for recent high school dropouts. All right, next passage from Megan McArdle. Article is titled "The Coming Burst of the College Bubble." More than half of all recent graduates are unemployed or in jobs that do not require a degree, and the amount of student loan debt carried by households has more than quintupled since 1999. These graduates were told that a diploma was all they needed to succeed, but it won't get them out of their spare bedroom at mom and dad's. For many, the most tangible result of their 4 years is the loan payments, which now average hundreds of dollars a month on loan balances in the tens of thousands. Okay, the next one from Hope Yen. The article is "Half of new grads are jobless or unemployed." In 2011, about 1.5 million, or 53.6%, of bachelor's degree holders under the age of 25 last year were jobless or underemployed, the highest share in at least 11 years. In 2000, the share was at a low of 41% before the dot-com bust erased job gains for college graduates in the telecommunications and IT fields. Okay. Now the fourth one is from Jordan Weissman. How bad is the job market for college grads? Underemployment also tends to be temporary for college graduates. Even after the recession hit, Pew found that annually about 27% of BAs stuck in high school level jobs transitioned to college level employment. Unemployment for college graduates is higher than normal. Underemployment is more prevalent, though. It's less severe than college critics portray, and perhaps no worse than during the Reagan days. All right, so from those 4 paragraphs, pull some information together to create another single paragraph with a new concept or some kind of concept that you are synthesizing from this information. Okay? Put it and compose it, post it to Questions to the Professor. I'll give you about 10 minutes or so to do that. Okay? Go ahead and pause me and do your work. right, and we're back. All right, now let's talk about the next essay you guys are going to be doing. The next major essay for this class is going to be an analysis synthesis essay. You're going to be breaking down a topic into something more understandable, but also using research on that topic in order to form a new perspective on it, synthesizing the research information into your argument. Now, this essay is going to require some further research than the previous essay project, so you are going to be required to have a works cited page in addition to your essay. This also means you will need to employ in-text citations in proper MLA format. We will be discussing MLA format next week, as well as giving you an in-depth look at the Purdue OWL website. Okay? So be ready for that. We're going to do a lot. Next week we're going to be actually going through the Purdue OWL website when we do the Collaborate session on Wednesday. Okay? Next Wednesday, not this Wednesday. Okay? Your subject matter for the essay can come from one of two sources. Okay? Here's your options. One, you can choose one of the posts from the blog project you just completed and expand on the topic discussed in its visual analysis. Form an argument based on the content of the post and perform research to prove your point, synthesizing from your sources to support your argument. Okay? So, pick one of the blog posts and use that as the basis for this analysis synthesis. Okay, this will allow you to do a little bit more serious research. The other option you have is to choose one of the discussion board topics and expand upon its original subject matter. Find an argument to be made within either the initial topic itself or the responses you and your classmates posted, and perform research to analyze the topic, synthesizing from your sources to support your argument. Okay, so there are 10 topics to choose from currently on the discussion board. If you don't take this option, you're going to need to pick one of those topics and use that as the basis for this analysis synthesis essay, which basically means you're going to be looking at the information there, and you're going to be basing your argument either on your response to that discussion topic or responses that your classmates left. Okay? Now, as the synthesis will be a major element of this essay, you will need to perform research from a minimum, okay? I am saying minimum. This is the bottom, okay? Minimum of 6 research sources of any type, including internet sources, print sources, and database articles, okay? You need a minimum of 6 research sources, okay? 5 or less, you're going to lose points on this, okay? So make sure that you have enough research, okay? Here's the other thing, though. It's not enough to just do the research. You actually have to use the research. Okay? So, if you have works cited listing 6 works, but you only use 3 of them, or I can only see you citing 3 of them in the paper, you will also lose points. Okay? So, make sure that you use it. You're getting the research sources you need, and you're going to use them all. Okay? And it has to be at least 6. All right, the baseline for this essay, okay? The length is going to be 3 to 5 pages, double spaced. It's going to be 11 to 12 point font, as usual. Proper MLA formatting. We're going to talk about that next week when we go to Purdue OWL. Okay? The works cited should be in proper MLA format for each listing and in alphabetical order. The works cited page does not count toward the overall page count for the essay. So when I say 3 to 5 pages, that's 3 to 5 pages of essay plus a works cited page. Okay? Again, the research sources can be any mix of internet, print, or database sources, but you must have a minimum of 6 sources. Okay? Now, here's the workshop schedule for the remainder of the semester. Okay? Yeah, we're getting down there. All right? So this one's going to take you we're going to give you a little bit longer time on this. Okay? You got approximately, it's going to be a little over a month to do it. Okay? Your revision workshop is going to be the week of November 23rd. Okay? That is, you may have noticed, that is Thanksgiving week. Okay? We're going to do a very minimal lecture stuff, just to let you know, because I am actually going to be traveling that week. Okay? So I'll probably be making 2 weeks worth of lectures in advance and then just scheduling them to post. Okay? And that week, I guarantee you, we will not do a collaborate session because I will be in Arizona. Okay, so revision workshop should be the week of November 23rd, Thanksgiving week. Okay, take a little bit of time before you lapse into your food coma, and do a little bit, give a little feedback to your teammates, and get your essays posted. Proofreading and editing workshop for this is the week of November 30th. Okay, that's the final week of the semester. Okay, like I said, we are getting down there. This essay is due on eCampus by the end of the semester, December 4th at midnight. Okay, the following week is finals week. Okay, technically does not count as part of the semester, but we have to have it there anyway. Okay, the week of November 30th is the last regular week of classes for the semester. Okay, so week of November 30th is going to be proofreading and editing. The link to turn it in will open it up on December 3rd. You need to have it in by December 4th. I really can't give you a lot of leeway on this because once I get done with finals, I have to make sure everybody's grade is squared away and close the semester out. Okay, so I don't have a lot of leeway on this. All right. So again, December 4th is the deadline is the due date for this essay. 2 weeks worth of workshopping prior to that. All right. Any questions about this and about anything else in regards to this essay will be covered in the Collaborate session this week. Okay. I'm going to take a brief intermission here. And when we come back to this, when you come back to me, we're going to talk over the final exam. Now, this would be a really good time for you to go over to eCampus, go follow the final exam link, and download the material that's there. Here's the lowdown on the final exam. Okay. Final exam for this class is going to be a timed writing assignment. Okay. For the purposes of taking this exam, you're going to need to secure a proctor to administer it to you. What they're basically going to do is act as a timekeeper. The exam itself is going to be taken on eCampus. Okay. It is going to be a timed writing project. I will tell you, you have exactly 1 hour and 50 minutes to complete it. Okay. There is an exam packet that's currently available on eCampus, which will give you most of the necessary materials for the exam, as well as a list of 4 possible questions that may appear. Okay. I guarantee you that that 2 of them will appear on the exam. You will have the choice between one of those 2 to write for the exam. Okay. And here's how this is going to work, basically. The reason why you're getting the exam questions now is so that you can practice writing them in the time limit. Okay? So make sure that you are understanding what those questions are and how you can answer them in a reasonable amount of time. So it is highly suggested that you perform some further research into the materials presented, especially if some of it is unfamiliar to you. Okay? It's entirely possible that some of this stuff may not be something you're familiar with. It may not be something that you've ever thought about. Okay. I will guarantee, though, that it's going to be something that's probably going to elicit some reaction. Okay. That's intentional. Like I said at the start of the semester, some people get upset by these, and that's intentional because the more you feel about it, the better you write about it. Okay. The more invested you are in the topic, the more willing you are to articulate your idea in a way that gets your argument across. Okay. Also, I highly suggest that you print out the packet. Okay. You're allowed to use the packet during the exam along with anything else that you've written into it. Okay. Your notes are acceptable for use as long as they fit within that packet. Okay. I want it to be 100% clear here. This exam is not about how well you can memorize and regurgitate facts. Okay. This exam is about how well you can articulate a response. Okay. The type of writing that I'm asking you to do for this exam is typically called strong response, which means that you're going to read something and then you're going to write a reaction to it. Okay. The questions are basically just going to guide you on how you are going to react, what kind of things to think about in your reaction, and what to react to. Okay. So, with that all in mind, okay, if you've got the packet with you, that's great. Open it up. Take a look at it as we go along, okay? Because these next slides are going to follow the packet pretty much directly in order. We're going to try to summarize what's in it. Exam topic for this semester is children's television censorship. All right, let's let that soak in a little bit. Always under intense scrutiny, children's television can sometimes veer into areas where general, read adult audiences become more uncomfortable with subject matter. Reactions to these ventures into the wilderness can vary on a local or national scale, but many times when the ire of the adults thinking of the children is raised, it leads to the censorship or wholesale change to individual episodes or even entire series. Okay? There is no usual suspects when it comes to what causes controversy or what shows it appears on. The only commonality is that something angers a potentially powerful membership of the audience that leads to banning of episodes, cutting of scenes, or in some cases changing characters. Okay? So what we're going to be looking through here is instances where certain members of the audience felt that children's programming crossed a line. Okay? Or broadcasters got squeamish about something that was presented in a program and decided that they were going to alter it in some way. Okay. As you can see, there's 2 really good examples of it that you can see that are not blocked by my webcam. Okay. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail about these, but the top one is from 1992. This was an episode of the Disney TV show Gargoyles. Episode 8 was called Deadly Force, involved this character Lisa Mazza accidentally getting shot in her own home with her own gun. And this scene, this particular screenshot right here is what has caused controversy over this episode. Okay? The other screenshot here, a little bit more recent. This is from 2017, I think. It's hard to tell because this show had such a screwy broadcast schedule, but that is Steven Universe. The characters of Ruby and Sapphire, who were a very prominent lesbian couple. Okay. And it caused some concern in other countries that are a little bit more conservative in terms of ideas such as sexuality. Matter of fact, a funny story here. As we're going to talk a little bit about this, Ruby and Sapphire are groundbreakers because they participated in the first lesbian wedding portrayed in children's television. And the funny part about this was when they were first introduced as characters and shown to be a couple. Of course, there are certain countries that have specific laws and specific ordinances about homosexuality, and specifically Russia has a thing about homosexual propaganda. So propaganda, I should say. They basically say nothing like pride flags or positive portrayals are allowed in media. Okay, so when Steven Universe went to Russia, when they chose actors to dub in the characters, they coded Ruby as male. Okay, because you just take a look at it, Ruby does kind of look male. Okay, and Sapphire is always wearing a long flowing dress. Okay, the showrunner, the show creator, Rebecca Sugar, I think knew about this when she made this decision. When they got to the wedding, she completely flipped the wardrobes. So now Ruby was the one wearing the gown, and Sapphire was wearing the tuxedo. Kind of like flipping off Russia there. She'd already kind of done that because if you ever see any world maps in that show, the majority of Russia is a giant crater in Steven Universe. So anyway, issues causing controversy change over time. They range from violent content and overtly offensive behavior to uncomfortable social movements such as civil rights, such as the LGBTQIA plus community, and also uncomfortable societal ills like mass incarceration, the opioid crisis, etc. Okay. For instance, you can see this on the slideshow if I don't have my webcam, but what my face cam is actually hiding is a screenshot from Sesame Street. Last year they introduced a character named Carly. Okay. Carly is a Muppet character. She's one of their typical monster characters. What's different about her is she is in foster care. Okay, reason why she's in foster care is because her parents are opioid addicts, and she was taken by CPS and placed in a foster home. Okay, so they're getting into some really heavy stuff there. Okay, so this is what we're talking about: is children's television, controversies, censorship, that sort of thing. All right, so there's a lot of different reasons that you find for controversy. Okay, one of the first things that's in the packet is a article from the site Looper, which covers most of the reasons behind children's TV causing controversy in general. Okay, and there are 11 specific episodes or entire series that are covered in this list. Okay, so one of them is violence, which is the very first one on the list. Again, Deadly Force, the episode of Gargoyles. Okay. Then there's offensive content and language. Okay. For examples of this, we have Rude Removal, which is an episode of Dexter's Laboratory, an infamous episode that did not see air until years after the show was off the air, and it resurfaced on Adult Swim. If you're familiar with Dexter's Lab, you know Dexter and Dee Dee, they are the two main characters. Dexter has a lab that's hidden in his bedroom. Dee Dee always finds her way in and tends to annoy her brother. The plot line of this particular show, of this particular episode, was Dexter created a machine that was going to supposedly take all the annoying elements out of Dee Dee if he zapped her with it. But unfortunately, they both got zapped, and what happened was it created two completely split versions of both of them. There was a good Dee Dee and Dexter that were vaguely British and extremely polite. Then you had a bad Dee Dee and Dexter who every third word was bleeped and were exceedingly antisocial. Okay? So because of all the implied cussing, it wound up getting banned. Okay? The other one listed here is Buffalo Gals, which is an episode of Cow and Chicken. The Looper writer puts it best when he says that it is basically seven straight minutes of lesbian jokes. A biker gang called the Buffalo Gals. It's all very butch-looking women come rampaging through people's houses, munching on their carpets. You can kind of see where we're getting there. Okay. Next one, physical harm to viewers. In this case, it's the episode Electric Soldier Porygon from Pokemon, an episode that is infamous in television history because of how many people got hospitalized because of it. This is the episode that had a scene involving alternating red and blue flashing strobes because of an explosion. And that actually sent a number of Japanese children to the hospital with seizures because they were photosensitive. Okay? As a result, this is the one episode of Pokemon that has never been broadcast in the U.S., never been dubbed, and will never will be. Okay? Another one is excessive death portrayals. Okay? For example, one of them is the episode, a short titled One Beer from Tiny Toon Adventures. It was supposed to be a kid-safe PSA where the three main characters you see there are Buster Bunny, Plucky Duck, Hampton J. Pig, find a beer in a refrigerator and go on a bender, and eventually wind up ruining their lives and eventually wind up dying because they steal a police car and drive it off a cliff. Okay, people and folks felt that was a little too excessive, so after its first broadcast, it was removed from the episode that it originally appeared in. The other one here is the Sailor Moon Day of Destiny. This was in Japan. It aired as a two-parter, and the first part ended with a cliffhanger because most of the Sailor Scouts were dead. Okay, when it came to the U.S., it was edited to almost to the point of unrecognizability, so that it would look like the Sailor Scouts were not dead; they were just incapacitated. Okay. We have offensive religious content. The only example of an entire series in this particular article is Garbage Pail Kids, which was an attempt at a series based on the popular trading cards in 1987, which was boycotted by several religious groups because they felt it was sacrilegious. Okay, and the network pulled the plug on it before it ever aired. At least in the U.S., it didn't air. It did find airtime in foreign markets, but never aired in the U.S. The other one here is the Powerpuff Girls, an episode titled See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, which was a riff on the Who's musical Tommy. It was a musical episode, but what got this actually banned was there was scenes of destruction that took place in this episode, and some of the destroyed skyscrapers left iron girders that the censors felt looked too similar to crucifixes. So they decided that to be on the safe side, they were going to ban this episode. Okay, we have overt sexual content. The two episode listings here. One of them is Batman: The Brave and the Bold. That is The Mask of Matches Malone. Part of this episode involves some of the female heroines, a group commonly called the Birds of Prey, finding themselves on stage at basically a cabaret setting, and they're performing before a bunch of guys, one of them being a fellow named Matches Malone, which is an alias that Batman uses when he goes undercover. And to try to save face, the Birds of Prey decide they're going to distract the guys by performing. They're going to sing, and they basically sing a song that uses so much double entendre to imply how every male member of the Justice League does in the bedroom that it wound up being edited down. The scene that I've got from it here, you can see this is the character Huntress. Never mind her wacky eyes, the finger there is what got the episode in trouble, because at that point in the song, she's singing about how Aquaman is so nice because his little fish knows how to swim. Okay, you can imagine what she's talking about there. The other episode listed here, Outlaw Star, Hot Springs Planet Tenrei. Let me just leave it this way. It's an anime, and it's dealing with hot springs. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. The last one, promoting antisocial behavior. This is actually the oldest episode on this list. It's an episode of the program Dudley Do-Right from the late 60s, early 70s, titled Stokey the Bear. And this basically was an episode that got protested by the Park Service because of the parody of Smokey the Bear. Stokey the Bear was supposed to be kind of like a version of Smokey the Bear. However, in the episode, he's hypnotized by the show's bad guy by the name of Snidely Whiplash. And instead of preventing forest fires, he's actually hypnotized into starting fires because Snidely Whiplash wants to cook his hot dogs. Okay? And eventually it escalates to the point where it's implied that Stokey the Bear is responsible for the 1871 Chicago fire. Okay? So there's a lot to unpack there, but needless to say, after one broadcast, it was pulled from circulation. You can find it. You can probably find it on the internet somewhere. I'm sure somebody has it in like a collection of banned cartoons or something like that. But it was never rebroadcast on television. All right. So the next thing we're looking at are some individual case studies. One of them is going to be a single episode. One's going to be a series, and one's going to be an entire issue that has led to numerous controversial moments. Okay, so the case study we're looking at, as I mentioned before, Deadly Force. Okay, it's an episode of Gargoyles. It's from the first season. The episode is the 8th of the season. Keep in mind, this program had a 5-episode pilot. Okay, so this is actually in the 3rd regular episode of the series. Okay, now the plot line of the episode centers on guilt felt by the gargoyle Broadway. Now, I should explain, if you're not familiar with the show, it takes place in New York City. Other than the leader of the gargoyles, who was called Goliath, the other gargoyles had no names until they were awakened in modern-day New York City, and they adopted names based on the streets and boroughs of New York City. So, or in the case of one of the oldest gargoyle, the mentor character, he's named after the Hudson River. Okay, so the characters are Hudson, and then they have a dog named Bronx, and then they have 3 younger gargoyles, Brooklyn, Broadway, and Lexington. Okay, all named after streets in Manhattan. Okay, Broadway is kind of like a jovial fat dude. Okay, he's very happy-go-lucky, doesn't really have a lot of concerns. Okay, he's also very influenced by media, so he goes to see a Western, and he's enamored with the gunplay in the Western. So when he flies over and he goes to the apartment of this detective who's there, basically the gargoyle's ally, Lisa Mazza. Okay, and while she's cooking for them, while he's visiting, he finds her service pistol. She carries a .45, and he starts playing with it like he's in the Western movie. And unfortunately, he's got his finger on the trigger, and it goes off. And when it does, it shoots Elisa. Okay, it's actually really realistic how the after effects of the gunshot wound on Elisa. Broadway drops her off at the hospital emergency room, secretly, of course, and they wheel her in. They get her in emergency surgery. She flatlines a couple times. Eventually, she does make a recovery, but even even still, the next episode she's on crutches. Okay, there are repercussions for this, and subsequent episodes, it was shown that she was kind of careless with her holster. In this episode, in subsequent episodes, she's seen using a gun safe. Okay, so here's another thing that might give you an idea of how disconcerting this episode might have been. Voice actor for Broadway is an actor by the name of Bill Fagerbakke. If you watch SpongeBob SquarePants, you know Bill Fagerbakke because he plays Patrick Star. So Broadway has Patrick Star's voice. Okay, so imagine Patrick Star up and shooting SpongeBob, and that's what you got the equivalent of here. Okay, so the episode originally aired in syndication. However, it was removed from rotation when it appeared on Disney-owned cable networks such as Toon Disney or Disney XD. Okay. Now, some other networks did show it. Some other cable networks, particularly, as I recall, USA Network showed it. Okay, they had a weekday morning cartoon block, and they included Gargoyles in it. Networks that showed the series digitally removed blood from the scene where Lisa was shot. Okay, so they kept this particular shot in there, but as you can see right here, there's a puddle of blood under her. They were digitally altering this scene to remove the blood. Now, the episode was restored to the series in 2013 for the DVD collection release. I will say, also, in 2019, when Disney Plus premiered, Gargoyles was one of the first things that was offered for streaming. Okay, among their massive initial release for Disney Plus, Gargoyles was one of the ones that was really super popular in the first couple of months because people were rediscovering the show. Okay, the episode is in its proper place in season 1 rotation, and I will say I double checked this yet when I was putting together this packet. This scene has been altered. Okay, this particular screenshot right here, this scene is no longer in it. Okay, the shooting scene has been recut to avoid showing her on the floor bleeding. Instead of going to this scene, it goes immediately to the next shot of her right after that, which is focused up on her face. And the expression on her face when she's bleeding out, basically. Okay? So there's not so much obviously showing you that she's dying, but there's a lot of implication. Okay? So take that as you will. Okay? And also keep in mind that the entire point of this was about... The moral of this story was about gun control and not playing with guns. Okay, trying to teach kids that guns are not playthings. All right, let's take a look at our next case study, which is Sesame Street. Okay, it might surprise you that this is appearing here. Sesame Street is the gold standard of American children's television. It's currently in its 50th season. Okay. Hard to believe that any TV show would last that long other than a newscast, but there we go. It's now currently, its broadcast arrangement is shared between its original home on PBS. However, when new episodes come out, they now debut on HBO before making it to PBS. Okay? Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. Sesame Street has earned no shortage of criticism over how issues have been portrayed on the show. Loudest and most harsh criticism has typically involved portrayals of social issues such as multiculturalism and societal ills. It's probably not going to surprise you, but there was a lot, when it first debuted in 1969, there was a lot of people from a particular area of the country who were really upset about the fact that you had races intermingling. There was at least one call to ban the show in Mississippi after a campus shooting, a racially motivated campus shooting. So the call was, let's just sweep this under the rug and instead of addressing the gun control thing, let's just ban Sesame Street. Okay, that's a really smart call. So other stuff that's come under fire sometimes. Some of it has been kind of understandable. There was an episode sometime I think in the late 70s. That involved it was a Halloween themed episode and involved the Wicked Witch of the West. It was actually portrayed by the actual actress who played the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. And she was going around putting curses on people on Sesame Street, and a lot of parents said, "Oh, why are you doing this? This is too scary for little kids." Okay, not to mention the fact that they gave her back her green makeup and her full costume as Wicked Witch of the West, and the fact that she had not aged too well made her even more horrifying. Okay. There was also some stuff where they were very well applauded for how they handled things, especially when it's stuff that deals with death and major events. Okay, two in particular. One was an episode filmed shortly after a cast member had died. The particular cast member had played Mr. Hooper, the storekeeper. So they tried to handle this as sensitively as possible. They aired it the day after Thanksgiving. And the entire episode was very sensitive about trying to teach Big Bird how to handle when loved ones die. They were also well applauded for how they handled telling kids about 9/11. Okay, especially because theoretically Sesame Street is supposed to be in New York City. Okay, now as far as other issues, the show typically has introduced characters over the years who introduce children to these societal concepts, usually in response to criticism, and they've also integrated them into the show's overall storyline. Okay, the example that you've got here, this is actually from the earliest days of the show, from 1972, introducing the character of Roosevelt Franklin here. Roosevelt Franklin is coded as African American. He was actually created by one of the African American human cast of Sesame Street. He's basically there to teach kids about how to handle integration. He's also there to try to avoid being a stereotype character, because Roosevelt Franklin in Sesame Street is a genius who in fact is a child running his own elementary school. Okay. Some of the other concepts they've done with characters, one was divorce. To achieve this, they used the character of Abby Cadabby and had her admit that her parents are divorced. Okay. They introduced the character of Julia to teach kids about how to deal with other kids that may have autism. Okay. Now, Julia herself has caused a little bit of controversy within the autism community, as the group that helped to create the character wound up severing ties with Sesame Workshop. Okay. Not quite sure why that happened. There was some kind of disagreement over the portrayal that Julia was giving, but at any rate, they tried. Okay. Then you have the character of Alex, whose father is in jail. Okay, so that deals with mass incarceration. You had character Lily introduced. Lily was a character who was suffering from hunger at home. She was from a impoverished family. They were on public support, that sort of thing, so they were having trouble keeping food on the table. Eventually, that family became homeless, so she became their case study on homelessness. Okay. One other thing is that Sesame Street has been exported around the world, and they've done the similar approach to international shows to show issues that they may be facing in those particular countries. South Africa created a character named Kami, who was HIV positive. Kami created a lot of controversy because a lot of people were saying, why are you giving a Muppet AIDS? Why are you giving a Muppet a sexually transmitted disease? Okay. The thing is, though, is that HIV is not necessarily, it started off sexually transmitted, but it's also transmitted in other ways. Okay. Who's to say how she might have been born with it? Okay. She might have got it from her mother. Kami might have gotten it from a blood transfusion, whatever. Okay. There's all sorts of ways to contract HIV, but everybody has to focus on, oh, you made a Muppet who's either sexually active or they're a drug addict or something like that. Okay. Speaking of drug addicts, that gets us back to Carly, I mentioned earlier. Carly is a monster character who's in foster care. Okay. The reason why is because her parents are currently in rehab for opioid addiction. Okay. That's how they were trying to handle the opioid crisis. Okay. Many times Sesame Street gets applauded for their approaches, but there's also sometimes when parents individual parents, individual members of the community, individual politicians create a backlash, okay, for whatever reason. Okay? Because that's the next case study, which is the entire issue. It's the issue of LGBTQIA plus representation. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm sticking with this issue is because it tends to be the one that gets the most press lately. Okay, especially because there's a lot of inroads that are being taken in this particular realm. Okay, in recent years, the issue that has led to more children's TV to be altered than any other has tended to be issues around LGBTQIA plus issues, specifically portrayals of relationships and characters in media. There are some factions that don't even want these characters to be visible. They don't even want them to exist, or if they do exist, they want them to be straight. Okay, they don't want any kind of they don't want their kids exposed to any of this. Okay, and more power to them. Maybe they just don't watch. Okay, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to see this kind of representation. Much of the censorship surrounding this issue gets enacted in foreign countries when shows are localized. I talked about that Russia example earlier with Steven Universe. Steven Universe has also been run afoul of the UK. A particular scene of two of the female gem characters dancing wound up getting recut to not show them actually touching each other. Okay. This also has precedent in the US, though. The most significant being the localization of Sailor Moon. Okay. Which actually led to another unintentional, another situation where they unintentionally made it even funnier. Okay. In this case, it was two of the Sailor Scouts, Sailor Saturn and Sailor Uranus. In Japan, they were lovers. Okay. But they decided that they were going to try to make them more familial. They're going to give a different reason why they might be so close in America. So when they localized it, they changed the dialogue so that the Sailor Saturn and Sailor Uranus became cousins, which opened up a whole other can of worms, because now we have undertones of incest here. Okay, because they still act like lovers even though you're calling them cousins. Okay, that's the problem there. Now, shows have been developed in recent years that have had LGBTQIA plus representation built into them. Sometimes the framework the entire show is built around. Okay, one of those examples is Steven Universe. It's created by Rebecca Sugar, who is non-binary bisexual. And the show is showing all sorts of different types of relationships. It's all sorts of different types of characters. They include lesbian characters, obviously Ruby and Sapphire, but also Pearl is coded to be lesbian. Bisexuality in terms of Rose Quartz, okay, is she had female gem lovers as well as male lovers, and ultimately her let's just be frank, her husband Greg Universe. Okay, you have intergender characters. The character of Stevani, who's a fusion of the title character Steven Universe and his best friend Kanye Maheshwaran. Okay, is a human gem hybrid, or the character Steven himself is a human gem hybrid, so he's able to fuse with Connie to form a third person who they call Stevani. Okay, and Stevani identifies as intergender. Okay, so they had asexual characters. There was a gem character called Peridot, who is coded as asexual. Okay, so she doesn't go into relationships at all. Okay. The other one, the other prime example recently is the Netflix show She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. The central, I don't want to say conflict, but basically the central framework of the entire show winds up coming down to the characters that got pictured here, Adora and Catra. Those two characters wind up forming the central relationship because they've been friends since childhood. And basically their relationship has grown. Now this This show is also created by another non-binary creator. In this case, creator is Noel Stevenson, who prior to creating this show also created a viral phenomenon on Tumblr called the Hawkeye Challenge, or the Hawkeye Initiative rather, which was a challenge to artists to rethink the way female characters are portrayed in artwork by taking basically they were taking female poses from comic books and stuff like that and replacing the female characters with Hawkeye. And the results were actually pretty hilarious. So if you ever want a really good laugh, search up the Hawkeye Initiative. While many shows can only get away with it in closing seasons or episodes, more shows recently are being overt about their representation with the support of their broadcast platforms. Okay, and it's not just I should also say here, there's also instances where they tried to limit same-sex couples to the background as supporting characters. A couple good examples of that. One is the show Clarence from Cartoon Network. Another one's a Nickelodeon show, the Loud House. It has a character who has two fathers. Okay, Clarence has a character with two mothers. Okay, Steven Universe has a character with three mothers. Okay. Also, as far as closing seasons or episodes, a couple of prominent examples of that. One of them is Nickelodeon's Legend of Korra, which had the main character Korra and her friend Asami were basically said to be in a relationship at the end of that. It's only implied because they're holding hands, moving into another realm of reality. Okay. The other example is Gravity Falls, when that show in the final episode confirmed that the two sheriff characters, I think it's Sheriff Bloves and Deputy Darland, I think were their names. Those two were confirmed to be in a relationship. Okay, so a lot of shows are doing it in the background. A lot of shows can only get away with it at the very end. For sure, Gravity Falls could only do it at the end because the Disney standards and practices would not allow it throughout the duration of the show, so he just left in little hints. Okay, they're being a little bit more lenient about that now, as evidenced by the most recent example that got me thinking about this topic is an episode of a Disney XD show called The Owl House, which had two teenage female characters dance with each other at a prom. Okay, and implied that there's a romantic relationship there. Okay, and that show is actually still in its first season. Okay, the creator actually got approval from his higher ups at Disney to do that. I have a number of extra resources in the packet that you can draw from to try to derive some examples. Okay, there's one of those resources is a 5-part report that was done for Impact, which is a student newspaper for the University of Nottingham in the UK. It's 5 articles about LGBTQIA plus representation. It is designed to be covering one platform per article. So basically, I can tell you the way it goes. Again, 5 articles. Article 1 covers Cartoon Network. Article 2 covers Nickelodeon. Article 3 is negative examples from Netflix. Article 4 is positive examples from Netflix. And episode 5 is Disney. Okay? Excuse me. There are also 12 video clips which give samples from the following shows that are affected by these issues. Many of these are what caused the censorship issues in the first place. So I've tried to present these controversial things to you, okay? So you can see exactly what was causing the controversy, all right? So I will say the first 11 on this list are the ones from the Looper article. They're all combined into one video that was supposed to accompany that article. from Looper. So Gargoyles, Dexter's Laboratory, Tiny Toon Adventures, Cow and Chicken, Dudley Do-Right, Batman the Brave and the Bold, Garbage Pail Kids, Sailor Moon, Pokemon, Powerpuff Girls, and Outlaw Star. Okay, now the rest of them, Sesame Street. I've included 3 clips from that. One of them involves Carly. One of them involves Alex, is shown here. You may remember Alex is the one whose dad is in jail. And then there's another one with Roosevelt Franklin. Okay. Then the other clips are here. Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts, which is a newer Netflix show, and has derived some attention because it has one of the supporting characters is an openly gay boy. Okay. Steven Universe, obviously for obvious reasons. The particular clip in here is the wedding of Ruby and Sapphire. She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. The video that's included is a summary of the relationship between Adora and Catra. Gravity Falls, it's some clips, Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Durland. Legend of Korra, it's the final scene from the series. Adventure Time, this would be a chronicle of the relationship between Marceline and Princess Bubblegum. And finally, as I mentioned, the most recent one of these, the Owl House, which is characters of Luce and Amity. All right, so that does it for the main overview of the exam materials. Again, you are allowed to have that packet with you when you do the exam. I'm not expecting you to memorize all that the entire thing, because let's be honest here, it's about 37 pages and includes approximately an hour's worth of video content. Okay, so I'm not expecting you to memorize that. I am expecting you, though, to use the information as best as you can to create your best essay. Okay, in the time that you're allotted. So in the meantime, we're going to be wrapping up the blogs in the next week or so. I want you guys to start thinking about your topics for the analysis synthesis. As usual, keep up with MindTap and the weekly discussion boards. With all that being said, we'll see you guys on Wednesday for Collaborate, and next week for the new lesson. Thanks for watching.